It's somewhere near the end of the last ice age. You are cold in a way you don't yet have a word for. And in your arms is a puppy that is dying. It can't stop shaking. It hasn't kept food down in days. Its eyes are crusted shut, and every few hours its small body locks up. Legs stiffening, breath catching. And you hold it through the seizure, and you wait to find out if it breathes again. Here's the thing. This animal cannot hunt for you. It cannot guard you. It's too sick to stand, let alone work. And you are starving. Every scrap of food, every hour of warmth, every ounce of strength you've got is the difference between your family surviving the winter and not. So answer honestly. Because your ancestors actually faced this. Do you keep feeding it? We were handed a certain picture of these people. Ice Age humans, cavemen, brutal, half-starved survivors for whom everything had to earn its keep or be thrown away. In that story, tenderness is a luxury nobody could afford. Mercy is a modern invention. Sentiment gets you killed. That story is wrong, and we can prove it's wrong. Not with a guess, but with graves. 4 of them, on 3 different landmasses, pulled out of the ground across the last 100 years. Each one is a crack in the brutal caveman myth, and the oldest of them may be the single earliest piece of evidence ever found of a kind of love that served no purpose at all. Let's open the files. Go back to that shivering puppy. It's not a metaphor. It's real, and we know exactly where it's buried. In 1914, quarry workers near Bonn in Germany cut into a grave. Inside were the bones of a man, around 40 years old, a woman in her mid-20s, and a dog. For 100 years, that's all anyone thought it was. A dog buried beside 2 people. Sweet. Simple. Nobody looked closer. Then, in 2018, 104 years after the grave was opened, a veterinarian from Leiden University named Luc Janssens looked at the puppy's teeth. And the teeth told a story nobody had noticed for a century. This dog had been savagely ill. The scarring in its enamel matched canine distemper, a virus that still kills puppies today. It is a merciless illness, fever, then vomiting, and diarrhea, then seizures, then paralysis. And Janssens could read the timeline of it in the teeth, the way you'd read rings in a tree. The puppy caught it at around 19 weeks old, and it didn't suffer 1 bout of it. It suffered 2, maybe 3, each one dragging on for weeks. Here's the sentence that should stop you cold. A puppy with distemper, this severe, dies in under 3 weeks. Every time, unless something intervenes. This one survived roughly 8. There is only one way that happens. Someone kept it warm. Someone cleaned the diarrhea and the vomit and the saliva off it, over and over for weeks. Someone dripped water into its mouth and coaxed it to swallow when it couldn't lift its own head. Someone sat up through the nights with a dying animal at the edge of the ice and refused to let it go. And now the part that rewrites everything. Listen to what Janssens actually pointed out. While it was this sick, that puppy was worth nothing. It couldn't hunt, it couldn't guard, it couldn't pull or carry or warn. In cold survival terms, it was a drain. Food and heat and hours and hands poured into a small body that might die anyway. They spent it anyway. 14,000 years ago, someone chose to care for a creature that could give them nothing back. Not next season. Not ever. And that is the oldest hard evidence we have that a human being has ever done such a thing. Now, if that were the only grave, you could wave it away. One soft-hearted family, one strange winter, one fluke. So let me show you why it isn't a fluke. Because the next file is 800 miles away, and the one after that crosses an open sea. And by the time you've seen all 3, the brutal caveman is going to be very hard to believe in. Move about 2,000 years forward and roughly 800 miles southeast to a place called Ain Mallaha in what is now northern Israel. Around 12,000 years ago, a woman was buried there. And when archaeologists uncovered her, they found her lying on her side, curled into the earth, with one hand reaching out and resting on the body of a puppy, 3 to 5 months old, tucked against her, beneath her palm, for eternity. Sit with what a burial is. It's a decision made by grief. Somebody dug that grave, somebody arranged her body, and somebody decided that the thing she should be holding as she went into the dark was not a tool, not a weapon, not food for the afterlife, but a small dog. Her hand didn't fall there, it was placed there, and that gesture, a hand laid gently on a puppy, has survived 12,000 years, and it still reads instantly. You don't need it translated. Anyone who has ever loved an animal knows exactly what that hand is saying. Now, you could push back. Dogs are different, you'd say. Dogs earn it. They hunt, they guard, they belong beside a human fire? Fair enough. So here's the third file, and it takes away even that excuse. Cross to the island of Cyprus, 9,500 years ago, in a village we now call Shillourokambos, a person was buried, someone around 30, and 40 centimeters away, in the same grave, laid out with seashells and polished stones like offerings, was a cat. An 8-month-old cat. And here's the detail that should raise the hair on your arms. Cats are not native to Cyprus. There were no wild cats on that island to tame, which means the people who settled there climbed into boats and carried cats across open water, on purpose, just to have them near. Not for meat. The bones show no cut marks, no butchering. Not for work. It's a cat. They ferried a small predator across the sea, kept it, and when the time came, laid it in the ground beside a person with treasure. And this is thousands of years before Egypt, before the pyramids, before anyone ever painted a cat on a temple wall. The bond we think Egypt invented was already there, quietly on a Mediterranean island, 4,000 years earlier. So step back and look at all three at once. A dying puppy, nursed through weeks of filth by people who were themselves starving. A woman lowered into her grave with her hand resting on a dog. A cat carried across the sea and buried with jewels. Not one of these animals was useful in the moment that counted. The sick puppy couldn't work. The buried dog couldn't protect a corpse. The cat did nothing at all but exist. By the pure arithmetic of survival, every single one of these was a mistake. Wasted food, wasted effort, wasted grief. And that is exactly the point. Because this kind of care comes before almost everything we call human. It's older than agriculture, older than the first city, older than writing, than money, than kings. Before we had a single planted field, or a law, or one word set into stone, we were already sitting up through the night with dying animals that could give us nothing, and burying them like family when they were gone. The brutal caveman was real in one way. Their world truly was merciless. But inside that world, again and again on separate continents, with no way of knowing each other, people kept choosing the opposite of merciless. They kept choosing the useless thing. They kept choosing to love something that could never pay them back. So go back one last time to that first fire, to the puppy shaking in your arms, and the question of whether you keep feeding it. You already know the answer. 14,000 years of graves know the answer. You keep feeding it, not because it's smart, not because it's useful, but because you can't not. And that refusal, to let a small, helpless thing die alone when you could hold it instead, might just be the oldest, truest fingerprint of who we are. The cavemen weren't who you were told. Long before the first seed was ever planted, someone was wiping the vomit off a dying puppy at the edge of the ice and choosing love over sense. If you've ever done something stupid for an animal you love, sat up all night, spent money you didn't have, grieved harder than you thought you would? Tell me about it in the comments. You're not being soft. You're doing something at least 14,000 years old. And if you want more of the history they quietly left out of your textbook, stick around. There's a lot they never told you.